In Sanskrit language and in most indigenous languages, there is no equivalent word for a vagina because nobody ever thought on those lines. They only thought of the womb as a whole, never thought of this part separately. Only when sexuality became a consciousness by itself in people's minds, only this outer part became important in somebody's mind. Otherwise, this whole thing was a womb. It was seen as a sacred space. You must understand, this is the inside of the womb. This view is of the inside of the womb. This is not outside. Always, wherever the Shakti and Shiva are presented, Linga and Yoni are presented, it is the inside of the womb that you are seeing, not outside.
Well, you want to marry Bhairavi, you're welcome. I know in the closing minutes, if I enter into this dimension, it'll create a lot of confusion. Well, let me sow some confusion and later on, some other day we'll clear this As far as I am concerned, she's a living entity for me, and she is like that for many people. So what should I do? Don't have to do anything. If there is not much of you, you will feel the presence of what is not you. If there is too much of you, you won't feel anything, anywhere. Not just here, anywhere. There are things, a few things which have manifested in some people's lives with Bhairavi, which are very strange and probably they wouldn't want to talk about it, so I'll leave that alone. But things have happened. But the problem with most people is they're already imagining something. Don't imagine anything. Imagination is not good for experience. If you think imagination is a substitute for your experience, it's a stupid way to live. You're imagining something. Imagination will feel pleasant for some time. If it goes out of control, you'll go nuts. Experience is different. Experience transforms life. Imagination, you can go to heaven in 2 minutes and come back and you're in the same place. Little depressed because you're back. Not that kind. Real life experience, physically manifest experience, it's very much possible. So devotion, not because you're singing for her, you're loving her, she'll appear. She's always there. It is just that with devotion, you're trying to wear yourself down. Who you are is becoming less and less as your devotion overflows. She doesn't care whether you're devoted or not. I don't go to her like a devotee, I go and check her out. Are you there? Okay, everything fine. I don't go her like this. When I want to enjoy her, I go like a devotee. Otherwise, I go like a mechanic and just check it out. Is she doing fine? Like a doctor, why a mechanic? I just check her out, if she's doing okay. So the question is not your devotion. Your devotion has nothing to do with her. Your devotion has something to do with you. If you're devout, there's not much of you left. If you're absolutely in devotion, nothing of you will be left. If nothing of you is left, she will be strong, as real as the morning sunlight. If you don't get the morning sunlight, if you're the kind who misses it, do you come for sadhana every day? If you're missing the morning sunlight, like the noon sunlight in the month of May, she's as clear as that. Only thing is for you to feel it, this must be empty. How empty you are, that strongly you feel it. I don't even go there saying Jai Bhairavi, Devi, nothing. I go and just check her out like a doctor. Okay, are you doing well? Your hands doing well, legs doing well, everything good? Okay. And then, just to have fun. So your devotion is not about Devi, your devotion is about dissolving yourself. We are also coming towards the 11th anniversary of Bhairavi consecration. Ideal time. Oh. So this is what I was afraid of. I told you, at the time of consecration, I fear this, that slowly you guys will become fans of Bhairavi because she's a kind of a star, and you'll start ignoring Shiva. I said Shiva, you said nothing. Bhairavi, ooh! This is what I expressed 11 years ago. I fear she will become more popular because there is a little give and take with her. With him, no give, no take. Because you still have a mind which questions anything that you do, what is the use? First thing you must ask the question, what is the use of you being alive? What is the use of you being born? So all you will come to with the silly logic of the mind is no use, to be or not to be. So, for a logical mind, in many ways, Bhairavi is more appealing because there is a little transaction. So this is 11th here, and you know her phone number is 11. Hello? And this is the 11th year where we are opening up certain possibilities of sadhana. Till now, Devi sadhana or Bhairavi sadhana was available only for women. This year they're losing that privilege. Men also are getting into Devi sadhana. See, she's popular. What is the significance of the feminine as a dimension? Well, you were given birth by a feminine entity. Because initial transactions were very sweet, she was like a goddess, your mother I'm talking about. But later on transactions got a little… So, she came down from the status of being goddess to just another human being, nice, loving maybe, but just another human being. So what is the significance of this worship of the feminine? One important thing that you need to understand is, feminine is not a gender, it is a dimension. If I utter the word feminine, you're thinking of a gender. No, it is not a gender, it is a certain dimension of life. The significance of this dimension is, it's easier to get response from this dimension than the other dimension that we consider as masculine, because it is designed in a different way. It's not about which is better than which, there's no such thing. It's just different. So feminine is a dimension, not a gender. There are fantastic examples, me also, a living example of that, but I don't like to put myself in that direction because of all these Bhairavi fans who are here, they'll all go berserk. One more recent example is Ramanujam. All of you have heard of him, a mathematician. There was also a movie about him a few years ago, of how Ramanujam poured out mathematics, very complex mathematical formulae, to a point where in early 20th century, when there was no concept of black holes, he kind of created mathematics describing black holes. When people asked him, where is this coming from? Simply notebooks and notebooks of math he just poured out. Sitting on his deathbed, he died very early, unfortunately. He said, my Devi, my goddess, bleeds mathematics. One who attains to the grace of the Devi, whatever you're doing in your life, you may be a business person, you may be a professional in something, you may be an artist, a musician, a yogi, whatever you are, if you want to pitch up your activity to another dimension of, doing things, you need Devi's grace. One who is touched by this grace will naturally rise in ways that other people will think is miraculous. This has happened to many people, I must tell you this. There have been significant men in the world, I don't want to name them now because it is politically sensitive. Significant men, just look up history, in the last 2 centuries, who were nurtured by their mothers and in some way, in their perception, the mother remained like a goddess. She did not come down to become a loving mother. She remained a goddess being hard on the child. Many men are there in the world in the last 2 centuries who have risen to great heights in whatever they were doing because in some way they were in feminine worship. Because articulation, and when I say articulation, not just verbal articulation, articulation essentially means you're able to find expression. If you want to find expression in the world, you need Devi's grace. Whether you do it by chanting a mantra, whether you do it by going to a temple, or whether you do it by acknowledging that dimension within yourself, or whether you do it by looking up to something that is feminine, or simply by being in nature. It doesn't matter how you do it, but that dimension that we refer to as feminine, when it yields to you, your articulation or your expression in the world will find tremendous enhancement. This is the 11th year, this is why we are opening this up for men also, the Bhairavi sadhana.
This question comes from Prasanth in Chennai. Namaskaram Sadhguru. In our culture, many women devotees have looked upon Shiva as their husband. For example, Kara Ikal Amayar, Akama Devi, Punyakshi. But no male devotee has looked upon a female deity in that dimension. Why haven't male devotees looked upon female deities in that angle? Is it right or wrong to look up that way?
Well, you want to marry Bhairavi, you're welcome. This is why we made the female deities so fierce. So fierce, you would only… I know in the closing minutes, if I enter into this dimension, it'll create a lot of confusion. Well, let me sow some confusion and later on, some other day we'll clear this. Between the masculine and the feminine, I'm not talking male and female, between the masculine and the feminine, the emotions that spring from what is feminine is always in the form of an offering. The emotions that spring from the dimension that we refer to as masculine, you being a male or a female is nothing to do with this. The emotions that spring from the masculine dimension is always to possess, to conquest. So in that context, approaching the divine as context will be simply waste of time and energy. It has to come in the form of an offering. So that is why women developed a whole tradition, if they are very feminine. Not all women are so absolutely feminine. In today's world, for the sake of survival, they're trying to make themselves more and more masculine because the framework of the world is entirely masculine. Very few spaces left where feminine can be expressed or feminine can find unabashed expression of the feminine is very limited in modern societies. Very, very limited space. Rest is all masculine. I would say, trying to be fair, at least 85% of the world is largely masculine, maybe 10–15% is somewhat feminine. That too, they're guilty of being feminine. Like that, they're feminine. They're not simply feminine. So, the feminine needs to be developed in the world if you want to have a balanced feel to life around you. It's important, feminine should come up at least 50%. So, approaching a masculine energy, approaching the divine as a woman will not really work for their own well-being. Because the feminine emotion, when it becomes subtle, naturally, knowingly or unknowingly, willingly or unwillingly, it becomes an offering. In that context, it works. That is the reason that this has been evolved in that sense, because the idea is to become an offering, not to become a conquest, even there.
When we consecrated Dhyanalinga, this corner, the southwestern corner becoming the Devi temple was always on my mind. I think I spoke a couple of times. But we did not have the means nor the time on our hands to do it at that time. But it was essentially planned this way. The Dhyanalinga is like a womb. It's the yoni of the Devi. When we say yoni, you must understand, the word yoni is describing the womb. In Sanskrit language and in most indigenous languages, there is no equivalent word for a vagina because nobody ever thought on those lines. They only thought of the womb as a whole, never thought of this part separately. Only when sexuality became a consciousness by itself in people's minds, only this outer part became important in somebody's mind. Otherwise, this whole thing was a womb. It was seen as a sacred space where all of us have to inhabit in the most crucial part of our making, the most crucial part of our making. When we have nothing in our hands, everything is in the hands of nature. At that time, that space protects us and makes us. So this was held as the most sacred space. And when you see the linga, this whole symbolism of linga and yoni, the Shakti and the Shiva principle, when you see this linga and the Avadiyar or the Shakti part of it, you must understand this is the inside of the womb. This view is of the inside of the womb. This is not outside. Always, wherever the Shakti and Shiva are presented, linga and yoni are presented, it is the inside of the womb that you are seeing, not outside. That is why the female part is at the base and the linga is here. So you are looking, when you enter the dhyana linga space, you are in the inside of the womb. And he is inside the womb, that's how it is shown. Now, what we are doing here right now is the Devi temple is coming here. So this was always a part of this triangle. It is just that we had not created an official space, but this was always the part of this triangle because this is the yoni. And right now, this is where Bhairavi is. This is a complete system now. In some way, not in terms of Dhyanalinga, he is complete by himself. But as a whole space, this has been a slightly incomplete space. So now, this process is complete. And now the first reverberation that happens out of this, which is the life-generating reverberation, it is just because two cells meet, life cannot happen. There is a reverberation, the first reverberation which is before the making of life. That reverberation is called spanda, and that is why the spanda hall is here. In this direction, the spanda hall and the Devi temple are exactly like this. At that time, I had not spoken about building this temple. I had to do lot of convincing to tell them, this is the angle I want the spanda hall in. They said, no, this will look better, that will look better. I said, no, this is the way we want it, because this is a whole system. Actually, in the right context, if we had done it in the right way, right is not the word, if we had time and means to do it the right… and the necessary social maturity, we should have started from this end. We should have first established Bhairavi, then gone for Dhyanalinga, then gone for Spanda Hall. That would have been the natural order of things.